Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different and trying to highlight some of the more underrated but awesome decks in Digimon, because I feel like there's still a lot that is viable in Digimon that's not necessarily being talked about or explored, just because it might be old or a little bit offbeat. But these decks are all still really fun and interesting to pick up and play, and by all means, feel free to try them for yourself. So, if you like this type of content and you want to see more, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and tell me your thoughts about any of the decks in the video down in the comments below. So, without further ado, let's look at some decks that are underrated but awesome in Digimon to play in BT22. Just as a quick disclaimer, I don't necessarily think these decks are going to be super great in the competitive spectrum, but that doesn't stop them from being fun and interesting decks to want to pick up and play. And the first deck on the docket for today is going to be Pulsemon. So, Pulsemon, like Gammamon, has a lot of toolboxing potential because of the different evolutionary branches that the Digimon has built into his archetype. And with the way that the Digimon TCG's power progression and pacing has kind of developed as of late, I decided to try to trim as much fat as humanly possible when it comes to a Pulsemon build. So it's a actual yellow base that's pretending to be a yellow base, but in reality it's a green base, because every Digimon in this deck is either going to be green or part green, and if they're not, then they're still searchable by some other means, whether it's still by having Pulsemon in its text or utilizing its color, which is why I'm going to be running the Grape Memory Boost, because we're still going to be leveraging Takumi Kazuchi, because Takumi Kazuchi, when he goes off, is still an incredibly strong and powerful card. So Grape Memory Boost just helps with that, on top of the fact that we still have a lot of our other generic searching tools that are in Archetype, like Hacker's Pride and the BT16 Pulsemon. So we're not necessarily going to be hurting. We do have other Digimon that are helping with the consistency by offering us the potential of drawing some additional cards and having some decent setup. But when it comes to how Digimon is currently being played, we need to try to get up into our higher stages as quickly as humanly possible, which is again why I'm focusing and doubling down on the green aspect, because a lot of the green cards like Runnermon and Pistomon do have the potential to gain us some extra memory, on top of the fact that we do have Green Scramble, which interacts with the majority of the cards in the deck to be able to try to save us on memory when we're going to be digivolving, which is pretty good, on top of the fact that, well, it's a scramble, so that way we could use it as a scramble to play out a Digimon as quickly as possible, and because we do have the ability to get up from a rookie to a level 6, potentially in a single turn, especially with some decent setup, it's not necessarily going to be hard to potentially get into a Takumi Kazuchi and be able to attack that following turn. It just depends on how quickly we see the BT17 Fenry Lugamon that is unfortunately limited to 1, but that's okay, because Takumi Kazuchi is still just a very powerful card in of himself, and any of our level 6 Digimon outside of our ace still have abilities that Takumi Kazuchi can take advantage of. So when it comes to just what Pulsemon is doing as far as some of the other mechanics that the deck is interacting with, obviously Pulsemon's main theme is going to be security manipulation. So he wants to be at exactly 3 security at any given moment, and he has ways to manipulate going above or below that, depending on the types of cards and effects that you're going to be utilizing. So we do have cards like Blinding Ray that can help us manipulate our security and remove cards, while we have cards like Hacker's Pride, where its delayed ability can help us not only just gain memory, but manipulate our security and gain security in alternative means. Then the other big mechanic that Pulsemon is working with is going to be the Mind Link ability. So we do have a card to be be able to set up our tamer to be able to Mind Link, and then we have 2 decent tamers that we're going to be using not only just because they're really good for their Mind Link abilities, but because the deck actively wants us to have them in our inheritables, so that way we could try to capitalize on a lot of our cards for having the specific card that's going to be Mind Link with our Digimon to again capitalize on our abilities. The deck has some pretty decent protections just because it is going to be running the barrier ability on either of the tamers, so when we Mind Link, our Digimon will have that, which helps with our security manipulation. The deck now has access to Fortitude. It has a level 5 with some pretty decent protection on the level 5, so if we can't necessarily go all the way up into a level 6, we still can stop at a specific level 5 and not necessarily be super afraid. And then we even do have an ace to try to help stop some of the opponent's actions the best that we possibly can. So it has lots of good defense, and because of the main tamer with the Alliance and Piercing ability, variety of things. So all of this culminates into Pulsemon being a really fun and interesting deck. The deck isn't without its flaws, and because of those flaws, it hasn't necessarily been doing super well in the meta, but that doesn't necessarily stop the deck from being a really fun deck to try out for yourself. Alright, and then the next deck that we have on the docket is going to be the DarkKnightmon deck. And DarkKnightmon has a couple of different ways that we could approach building him, because DarkKnightmon is the core card in of himself. So you could either build him like more pure Bagra Army or Twilight stuff, you could build him more towards an Ace stuff, or you could build him more towards Knight synergy. So there's a couple of different approaches, but DarkKnightmon is the name of the game here, and he is just a very strong card in of himself, because he's essentially a level 5 Digimon, thanks to his Digicross ability, will be hard playing for 4, so it's a very efficient Digimon to play, on top of the fact that he has some built-in disruption and removal, because he has the Digivolve attached to when we play or Digivolve up into him, on top of the fact that he's also going to be deleting something. And he's not the only DarkKnightmon to do that. We do have 2 of them that fit this build, so it's just a very consistent thing for us trying to hard play a DarkKnightmon to be able to get things set up and going. And when it comes to DarkKnightmon, we do have lots of ways to be able to support him. Obviously, because of the Digicross, we do have cards that we want to interact with him. So we do have cards that are interacting with Knightmon cards in of themselves, while also being fodder for Digicrossing into DarkKnightmon. We do have good search potential with some of our other cards, not only just with Deadly Axe, but with Kodamon, that's both synergizing with Knight stuff. We have Nene that's synergizing with Knight stuff. We have Modemon. So you can see that there's already a lot of built-in consistency on top of some hyper-generic consistency tools, like Pagumon rewarding us for when our Digimon's getting deleted, and we could just run a generic option card to be able to help flesh and fill out the curve when it comes to just what we can and should be doing. And it's not like the rookies are going to be bad either, because they're either going to be gaining us memory or just trying to help draw us cards. But regardless of what they're actually doing, most of the time they're just there to try to chip shot the opponent, because the deck doesn't necessarily have that great of offensive game plan. So most of the time we're just trying to control and annoy the opponent out of the game, and that's kind of why I really like the Lord Knightmon stuff, because not only is it just Knightmon stuff to interact with our other Knightmon stuff, but the fact that Lord Knightmon X Antibody is a very powerful Digimon to kind of just do everything what the deck is already doing and to be that big punch factor is especially nice. On top of the fact that because we are playing level 5s and we have good resilience with our level 5s, Lord Knightmon Ace is a really good card to be able to reuse our DarkKnightmons, on top of the fact that we do have the brand new BT22 Lord Knightmon that also can try to chip shot at the opponent's Digimon and control the field in a slightly alternative way. On top of the fact that we do have the new Ray Tamer to be able to synergize with it, to be able to have ways to get up into a mega level Digimon fairly cheap and easily, and we're not necessarily afraid of deleting a Digimon because our DarkKnightmon stuff does have abilities to replace himself, essentially. We have the save mechanic that's going to interact with Ray, on top of we don't care about our rookies because some of them are going to have on-delete abilities or an on-delete ability off of our egg to be able to gain benefit for deleting our Digimon. And the cool thing about the save mechanic with Ray is the fact that it could go underneath the Ray, and then we could use the Ray to digivolve into a Lord Knightmon and then gain the benefits of the Digimon that just went under Ray, or we've been passively stacking under Ray. So there's a lot of very cool and intricate play lines as far as what this deck is capable of doing if you're more in line to want to try to play a control orientated deck. This is definitely worth a try, weaknesses and all. Alright, and now we're on to the last deck for this video, and it is going to be a DM deck. Yes, I know, DM decks kinda aren't necessarily something that people are very excited about or actively want to play, but I definitely think after some experimentation, they are a little bit better than what we initially gave them credit for. So I think like the big thing came from their little bit of new support that we just got in the form of Vaidmon. So this card is a very fantastic card and strong enough to warrant wanting to play, because not only does he have built-in protection, but he also has built-in disruption and removal all into one body, on top of the fact that we could actually make him incredibly cheap to digivolve into with the correct setup. And I think that's just ideal for trying to play basically this like little DM package that allows you to just digivolve up pretty efficiently into more specifically DM level 5s, and then when it comes to the level 6s and 7s, you can kind of just run whatever you want as long as it can digivolve off of your DM cards. So here's an example where I'm just using Metallic Dramon and Volcanic Dramon as some really good generic top-end floodgates that are going to make it very hard for the opponent to really try to fight back, especially if I could digivolve cheap enough all the way up. Then I'm not necessarily afraid of their high digivolution cost, especially if I'm essentially taking the opponent's ability to play the game out of their hands. And then we're going to leverage the fact that we have those cards to be able to line up a Ragnarlordmon, because this is just a very strong game finisher still, and the fact that Metallic and Volcanic can replace themselves basically with the other one means that we can maintain a level 6 Digimon on the field to be able to go into a Ragnarlordmon with, and that's kind of where Mega Digimon Assembly comes into play, because it's just a very easy card to use, and we do have an on-color tamer to be able to use in case the opponent doesn't necessarily have a level 6 Digimon in play for us to be able to utilize it without our tamer. But the fact that we already have a on-color tamer means that it's just a very easy card to run, especially since the two DM tamers are already a really strong value package in of themselves, because when we're going to be digivolving up into our DM cards, we're not only just going to be gaining additional memory, which just makes our plays even easier, but we're also going to be drawing cards as well, maintaining our hand size, because one of the big reasons why a lot of people aren't necessarily super high on DM could be the fact that the training mechanic feels a little bit off, and these two tamers definitely help shore up some of those deficiencies when it comes to how the training mechanic works in general. Then we even have our own little built-in training card per se. It's not exactly a training card because we would rather just search the top two rather than just draw one, but for all intents and purposes, the fact that this card is in here just to help us efficiently go up our stages and save as much memory as possible, so that way we could go into our level 6s is really good. And we even have an on-brand and on-color level 6 Digimon that's going to be able to not only act as some good disruption and punch factor in of himself, but also help Ragnarlordmon because he actually has an inheritable ability. So if we're ever off on either of these, we still have a filler level 6 to kind of shore up the gaps, so that way we can always make sure to try to get into Ragnarlordmon as best as we possibly can. And as far as what the training mechanic is doing, is it's essentially just taking cards from either our hand hand or the top of the deck or trash or from wherever it's specifically stating, and just throwing it underneath to kind of build like a really big stack of face down cards. And then we're going to have a couple of cards in the mid to late stages of the game to be able to have good payouts and remove probably more than what their weight class generally does remove. So that way we could try to be controlling on the way up and try to disrupt the opponent and make their plays that much less efficient. So you can kind of see how everything is culminating into what this deck is trying to do, and I definitely think it's a very underrated deck, and one that definitely is worth your attention, whether you're playing it in this specific manner or a different specific manner with a different specific DM engine. It doesn't necessarily matter, it's just DM slot dot good stuff top end, and that's kind of the deck. So that's all I really have for today's video. Hopefully these 3 decks sparked some interest in looking at some other off the beaten path type decks to try to figure out some interesting things that you could do and explore with the Digimon card game. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be helpful and informative, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Later.